Hey, I'm Eric O'Keefe with FitnessBusinessInterviews.com, and I am here with one of the awesome superstars of the industry, and that is Kelli Calabrese. Now, Kelli has done so much for the industry, but it's not just the industry that she's done amazing things for. She's also done amazing things for women in the industry. She's had an amazingly successful career, helped thousands of people. She's changed lives, and she's built some amazing businesses. And Kelli's here to share her story, her experiences, and also share some tips on how to improve our lives, build our businesses, and just basically kick some major butt. So Kelli, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Eric. Thanks for having me.
All right. Want to know general background. I always like to find that out so everybody knows who you are a little bit. How'd you get started in the fitness industry?
Well, when I was 13, I remember exactly where I was. So I was playing tag in my front yard, just running around, the adrenaline going, and just remembering how great that I felt. And I went home that night and I wrote in my journal, I will be an exercise therapist. And I really had no idea what that meant, except that I was happiest when I was cheerleading, dancing, softball, running, swimming, biking, you name it. So I wanted to move towards that, but I also wanted to move away from a very strong family history of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. So it was a moving away from and moving towards what made me happy.
So it was real early on that you were like, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yes.
Okay, so as you grew up a little bit, like you went through high school, you got into college, is this the career path that you followed once you were in school?
Yes, I actually got my first certification while I was in high school.
Okay.
You had to be 17, and I had a late birthday, so I was 17 my senior year. And the first place that I drove was to a health club. I got my license on December 11th, 1986, and I drove straight to a health club. I became a member, and by the end of that month, I was actually working at the front desk as a receptionist. And by April of 87, I was a certified group fitness instructor. So before I even got to college, I knew I wanted to be in the fitness industry. And then I went on to get 3 degrees in exercise science, clinical exercise physiology, and also cardiac rehab.
So you did a lot of stuff. So you started basically in high school doing this, and then you went to college. Were you still doing the training while you
I
were in
was.
college?
I
Okay.
trained all through college. I worked at New York Sports Club. I worked at a local gym in town, and then I also taught classes on campus, and I had in-home clients. So I was carrying, like 20 credits and a 3.98 GPA, and I'd work the weekends at the home gym and then on campus and at New York Sports Club during the week. And a couple nights I was teaching at a local club near the campus and doing some in-home. So yeah,
So it's obviously something that you were just super passionate about this whole time.
absolutely. Still am.
Okay, now once you went through, you got all your degrees, certifications, you're working at the clubs, wrapping up in college. Where were you going after college? Like, what was the direction? You said, you were thinking of doing like exercise, and therapy side of things. Which way did you end up deciding to go?
Well, when I graduated, I went back to the club that I used to work at in my town, and they had held a position for me as fitness director. So I graduated and went right into that position. And from fitness director, then I just kind of kept transitioning. I became group fitness director. Then I became the manager of that club. Then over time, we opened up 3 more locations. Then we also started opening up corporate fitness centers. And then I started a school. So it just kept adding, progressing, and ultimately became a partner in that original health club. So we had the 4 clubs, several corporate sites, and I founded the school.
Okay, I want to dive into a little bit of detail there because there's some interesting things in there. So you got out of school, you ended up going back, um, you ended up being the fitness director.
Mhm.
What was that role like? What was your responsibility while doing that?
Well, we got up to about 67 personal trainers on staff, and they
Okay.
were part-time. They were not all full-time, but some were. And education was big. I mean, we were just huge into education, made sure that we were on top of everything new going on. We were constantly bringing in people to present the latest stuff that was going on. And I was always going out to industry conferences and bringing everything back, including, new equipment. And one of the things that I always promised to do was to be a student. In fact, just this morning, I went out and took a boxing class. I've never done that before, but I just love to be a student. So I would go out and learn things and then bring it back and educate our staff and, also help them how to get clients, how to attain clients. And so a little bit of the business side as much as the training side.
Okay, because you were doing the training before that. Did you know any of the business side, or does that just kind of learned along the way?
It was kind of learned along the way. I grew up in a family that owned businesses. My father
Okay.
owned a construction company, and my parents had a restaurant and a couple delis and a pizzeria. So I really got that hard work ethic and really the heart for serving people from my parents. So it was something that I sort of innately understood. But I hired a lot of business coaches along the way. I brought in industry experts to consult with us. I went off and did coaching with some leaders in our
Hmm.
industry, in personal development, outside of our industry. So always reading, always learning.
Okay. When you were the fitness director, were you still doing some of the training, or were you just responsible for helping everybody else get that done?
I always did some training. I always
Okay.
kept my feet in the trenches a little bit. I always taught a couple classes. I enjoyed teaching step and spin, and I did kickboxing and circuit training. So I still always kept my hands in that a little bit. And I always had a couple of clients, and a lot of times it was just that one that met me or asked for me or sort of tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, and you
Hmm.
just felt like you couldn't turn them down. You really wanted to help them. So I believe in that. Don't ask anyone to do anything that you haven't do, and it gives you great stories when you speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, at what point was it you were the fitness director that you ended up being the manager of that club?
As my responsibilities were growing, and the person who was the owner of the club really saw my potential, and I just started to take on more responsibility. For example, on the weekends, I would wind up being the only full-time person there, so I wound up becoming the weekend manager. And then
Hmm.
I would learn more about what's going on behind the scenes and everything from payroll and operations. So as I learned more, I went from sort of the weekend manager to then the full-time manager.
Okay, now I know from there, then you ended up, as you said, you became partner. How
Yes.
long was it that you were managing that one club before the partnership offer came to you?
Well, I started there when I was 17.
Okay.
Then I graduated college at 22 and
Okay.
went in there full time. And it was about the time I was 27 that I became a partner.
Okay. So
So in
so.
that time, I progressed from, fitness director, group fitness director, corporate manager, club manager.
Hmm. And as you became a partner, how did your roles shift and your responsibilities change once you were a partner?
You know what? There were things that I would do on a given day that I had no idea when I went for my degree in exercise science
Right.
that I would be doing. Everything from ordering bulbs for the tanning beds to, mediating a little disagreement in the child care center. So, you're looking at numbers a little bit more closely. You're watching payroll. You're watching the calendar to see what day EFT comes in and, what day
Hmm.
taxes have to go out. And so I wasn't really involved in that as much as the fitness director. But once you're an owner, you need to up the responsibility.
Did you find that you enjoyed that side at all, doing, managing some of those responsibilities?
It's not my favorite thing to do. I don't think it's my greatest skill to do. But I did have two other partners. Ultimately, we took in another guy, and one of them had a military background, and he was
Hmm.
all over those numbers. So
Okay.
thankfully, for me, I would just get the report, and we would be able to make some decisions based on that. I enjoy managing people. I have studied a lot about psychology, and I really like to know what motivates people, and what inspires them, and it challenges me to be a better person, to not just speak to people the way I like to be spoken to, but
Hmm.
in the language that they appreciate and are motivated by. So the whole psychology of managing, I love. But I'll be honest, I don't love things like payroll and
Yeah.
accounting.
Yeah. When you became partner, did they already have the four clubs?
No, we
Okay.
had at that time two clubs. I helped to open up the second location while I was still in college, and I would go there on the weekends and teach and manage as well. And then we opened up two additional clubs. One was in a corporate fitness park. We were in the main headquarters, not corporate fitness, a corporate park that had huge companies like
Mm.
Calvin Klein and
Right.
BASF and BMW and AT&T and T and so on. So in the headquarters of that corporate park, we built a fitness center. And then some of the companies came to us and said, we think this is great. We'd like to put one in our building. So then we expanded out into the corporate fitness. And then we also opened up a women's only club. And that was really a takeover. Somebody came to us asking us to consult. And when we went in there and looked at things, we wound up going in and buying the business.
Wow. All right. So you guys had to been doing pretty well to be opening those clubs, especially, in the corporate center and then buying out the business side of things. Now, what was the idea or the reason behind putting one right in the corporate center? Was it to try and attract those corporate clients, or would you just say there's a lot of traffic and let's just see how we can get people in the door from that?
Well, there wasn't much competition in that area anyway, so we thought we would put this fitness center in the middle of the corporate park, and we would get about half of our members from the corporation and then another half from the community. And it was only about 8 miles from our other center, so we thought it could better accommodate some of our other members as well. And that was about accurate. We had about 50-50 in terms of
Mhm.
membership from the corporate as well as from the community.
And you said after a while the corporations approached you and said, "Hey, we want you to put this in our buildings."
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Now,
Yes,
how
we
did
did
you?
that for Calvin Klein was one of them. It was a beautiful facility that we built for them in there. So that was all the way through from startup to actually managing it.
Wow. Okay, now there, that was a little while back. That was before that stuff was really popular. Now it's starting to take hold. What were you guys doing for them? Was it a facility that you put in? Did you do personal training, group training? What type of things were going on in there?
That was actually 1994 when we opened that corporate site, and we designed the layout for them. They gave us the space, and then we designed everything from the locker space to the studio space. We had that fully staffed from 5 in the morning until 7 p.m.
Hmm.
We did provide instructors at lunch and after work, and then we also had classes for them, everything from outdoor walking groups to we had seminars for them at lunchtime, competitions. They love that friendly
Hmm.
competition in that corporate environment. So we do everything from weight loss contests to, different ability type contests to see what levels that they could achieve. So we completely manage it for them. And it had everything from when you walked in the door, you got your t-shirt, you got your everything, shorts, towel, literally shampoo. It was all there for you.
Now again, corporate health and wellness, 15, 16 years, 20 years ago wasn't really on the mind of so many people as it is now. How did you convince those people to come in and say, "Hey, listen, this is really going to be beneficial to you"?
Well, what we found is that if you can get the CEO as your client
Okay.
and you can show them all of the benefits that being fit will give you, it will influence the rest of the company. So you go to the top and then the decision making just happens and it gets infiltrated in the company. So we started out by training the CEOs, and they instantly saw a difference in their energy, in their waistline, in their posture, in their pain improvement. So they were so excited and so hyped up about it that they started bringing upper management in for workouts, and before you know it, we had the account in the building.
Okay. And then the other clubs. I mean, obviously you had four. You did the corporate thing. That was one thing that kind of separated you from the competition. Was there anything else that was separating you from the others out there?
We had a really strong group fitness program.
Okay.
Our club was rated number 1 in New Jersey for personal training, but we also had a really strong group fitness program. Our instructors were phenomenal. We had some who were competitors back in the day who did the aerobic competition, so that brought really great energy. So it was really the heart of the club was the group fitness, and then
Hmm.
we had a tremendous amount of people that did personal training. In fact, it was more the norm where people would walk in and we go, you know what, most people here personal train, and they would at least try, a month's worth of sessions. So very strong personal training. No, everybody knows everybody's name, just really big on the service.
Okay. And I know that area in Jersey. I'm kind of curious. Is it North Jersey or Central Jersey that you guys were doing this in?
Kind of north central. My clubs
Okay.
were in Morris County, Somerset, and Sussex counties.
Okay, because I'm trying to understand the market so everybody else can, because that market right there, if anybody knows that area, there's a lot of big business there. There's a lot of um, disposable income, northern type of Jersey. So that was really smart that you guys had those clubs and those locations right there. So you're going on, you've got these clubs. How long were you a part of those clubs for, or are you still a part of those clubs?
I'm not still part of the clubs. When I
Okay.
turned 30, I had my son, and I was pregnant right away with my daughter. And I realized that, after 14 years of being in health club ownership and operation, that it wasn't exactly going to fit the lifestyle of a mom that I wanted to have. Because we
Hmm.
went from, 5 in the morning till 10 at night, a lot of nights, teaching my courses for exam preparation. So I just decided I'm going to find another way. I don't know what it is yet, but this is not it. So I was on the Stairmaster one day reading a magazine, and the title was Weight Loss on the Web. And they featured 4 different companies. And they profiled these companies in the area of exercise. They were all rated poor, fair, general, and weak. So I wrote all 4 companies and said, attached is my resume. I'd never even done a resume before.
Hmm.
And all 4 wrote back and said, when can you start? So at
Wow.
that moment, I just said, okay, there's got to be something to this online fitness weight loss thing. I'm willing to check it out. So I sat down with my partners. I said, I've got an infant. I'm pregnant. I've done this for 14 years. I know I can do it. I like it. I'm good at it. But I think there's going to be another way for me. So that's when I had them buy me out.
Okay,
And I
now,
wound up going with e-diets.
yeah, that's big. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was exciting. I was their lead fitness expert for 3 years, and that was totally new to me because it was big corporate business, which I had never really
Hmm.
done before. And really, the technology side and the internet, this was 2000. So, this was the first time that I was really getting into the whole online thing and marketing, viral marketing. So, that was really cool.
I want to know, you sat down with your partners and you confronted them. I'm thinking, 14 years with them, it wasn't an easy decision for you to make.
Uh-huh.
Um, how did you handle that, and how did they respond?
Um, they understood. One of them, but actually both of them had children, and they were the dads, so
Hmm.
they, could understand from my position why I would want to be more focused on being a mom and being available for my kids. So they understood, and we worked it out. I stayed on for another 3 months and was available to them for 12 months if they needed anything. So it was very amicable. In fact, I still talk to them, and when I'm up there, I see them, and they're down here, we see me, and I've done work for them since. And when I first left, I really kind of felt ripped out of my world as I knew it because I was
Hmm.
so immersed, and that was really my heart and soul was in those clubs. So I can remember looking at the clock, going, "Oh, there's a staff meeting going on now," or "Oh, the childcare team's coming in." And even when I would just go as a member to work out, I'd be watching, is the instructor starting class on time, and is there music the
Yeah.
right volume? And so it took a little sort of deprogramming for
Hmm.
me, but it was, just the next step.
Now, you were also something during this whole transition, maybe it was before that you did the Exercise Institute. Is that right? Was that
Yes.
before you left?
It is, yeah. I
Okay.
What happened was when I graduated around 92, 93, people started coming to me saying, "I want to do what you do. How do I become a trainer?" So I would sit down with them and I would help them study for the American Council on Exercise exam. But after a while, it started getting overwhelming because so many wanted to be trainers would come to me. And I called the American Council on Exercise and I said, "I need some help here. Do you have any study materials? Do you have, a book, a program, something to help me out to help these people pass your exam?" And they said, "No, but you can be the first." So that's what I did. I wound up being their first exam preparation school for their personal trainer exam. And I also did exam prep for the group fitness and for the clinical exercise specialists. And we also did their hands on training program called the Practical Trainer. And then we
Hmm.
ran CPR courses and we did all of our education. And we wound up getting a separate space next to the club. And that was our education center, which worked out great for staff training and meetings.
How long were you, or actually, how long was the program? Like, say someone wanted to get their, ACE certification from start to finish, how long would you work with them for?
Our long program was 8 weeks, and they'd meet a couple nights a week for 8 weeks. And our short program was a weekend. So that was pretty intense, but people would choose if they felt like they had a good base of knowledge and they had background and they were experienced, they could just come in for the weekend for some exam specific training. And then other people who just were enthusiasts but didn't really have the scientific background or the professional background would take the longer course.
Now, did you have to at any point go and find clients for this, or were people just coming to you?
Well, people were coming to us, but we did advertise. I mean, there was no Craigslist back then, but
Right.
we would run some ads in the professional magazines and journals and stuff that we were doing exam preparation, and mostly we would just put things in the local newspaper. And we had people from all walks of lives who were interested in becoming a personal trainer, and I think that was our headline, like interested in becoming a personal trainer. Come and take the class. So we could only take 35 in our room, and we
Hmm.
packed the classes and had a waiting list. So it was a great time. So many people were interested in getting into the industry, and we had everything from dentists to retirees to high school students. It was great.
Curious, what was the average passing rate of your students?
93%
Oh,
passed.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so while you were still partner with managing the clubs and a partner, you were running these classes, right? There was that. Was there anything else, because you had so much going on? Was there anything else during that time that you were doing, or was it just a focus on the clubs and the Exercise Institute?
It was mostly on the clubs, the corporate sites, the Exercise Institute, and we did a lot of things outside for the members and the community. So we were always involved in speaking and parades and taking members out on mountain bike rides. And
Hmm.
so it was very community, family focused and oriented. So that was a majority of what I did for the 14 years that I was with the clubs.
Okay, and you're at the point when you wanted to leave, when you went out. Did you start up immediately with e-diets, or was there, I know you had a fitness, like a consulting business. Was that done before e-diets?
It was actually about the same time
Okay.
when I had started with e-diets before I was out of the club. So I was doing both for a while, had the infant, pregnant,
Hmm.
work in the club still, and I had started with e-diets about 20 hours a week. And then after that 3 month transition out of the club, then e-diets actually wanted me full time. So that worked out really well. And I did that for about 3 years.
Okay, in e-diets, I mean, excuse me, in e-diets, it was new. I mean, this was over 10 years ago. Online stuff was still new. What
Yeah.
was the time like in doing things online pretty much when no one else was?
Well, at the time, they were the lead
Yeah.
diet website and they were also the lead subscription based website, meaning they had the most people who were paying for a monthly subscription than any other website. I mean, Weight Watchers was not there, nobody was there yet. So they were really the leaders. There was a nutritionist who brought this idea to a businessman, and they came together and put together an incredible company and a great program, and it's still going. And then when I came in, we created the exercise side of it. So they had the diet side already done, but they wanted to complement it with an exercise program. And then after I created that, then they said, you know what, let's sort of do a reverse website and try and capture more men because 85% of the dieters on e-diets are women. Men are more attracted to exercise. So let's appeal to them by creating this whole fitness site with sort of
Hmm.
a, I don't want to say Maxim kind of look, but a little more, masculine, a little more manly. And so then we did e-fitness, which is the reverse of e-diets, which is still also in existence.
Okay, so that was a full-time job for you.
Hmm.
Okay. What were you doing at the consulting at the same time? Were you finding the time to do that? Like, how did you find the time to do that?
Well, it started out with me realizing a few things that I really missed that I loved, and one
Hmm.
of them was teaching. So I just started going to conferences and then I'd write them and go, hey, that was a great conference. If you're interested in a speaker, here's my resume. I'd love to speak. And then the next thing you know, I'm speaking at Club Industry, I'm speaking for New York Sports Club, and
Wow.
just several different conferences that I had went to as an attendee and just, sort of on the edge of my seat going, man, you could be up there.
Right.
And that's sort of how the speaking evolved. And then people would just start to call me and go, hey, how do I do what you do? And can you help me with my clubs? And so I would do individual coaching on the phone with them while I was
Okay.
still full time with eDiets.
Okay. Was it as simple as you say to get those speaking gigs? I mean, you're talking for some big corporations here. You said you sent them the resume and then next thing you're speaking.
Uh-huh.
I mean, was it constant follow-up on your end, or did they just pretty much see, wow, she's got a pretty great resume.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
book her.
not at all. It was pretty simple. I mean, I remember, for example, the New York Sports Club, they have an annual summit every year. And I was in New Jersey, so I went into New York, went to the summit, and I honestly was impressed. It's the only way I know to be is to be honest and go,
Hmm.
hey, I just want to write you and tell you this was a great conference. It was really organized. I learned a lot. My only complaint is I couldn't be in three places at one time to hear all the great speakers. By the way, here's some things that I could talk about if you're interested in speakers for next year. Here's my credentials and references, and I'd love to speak. And they just called and said, okay, great, you're in next year.
Okay, I want to grab your advice on that a little bit because I know a lot of people and they've been asking me, how do I get on, big places to go and speak and do this and get themselves out there? What would be your recommendations if someone's looking to do that?
I would say, go as a student first, be an attendee. Each conference is a little bit different. There's so many conferences now, and each one has a little different audience and a little
Hmm.
different focus. So you want to be able to know who your audience is by being in the audience. So you can see, like, if I speak for power systems, that's going to be different than if I speak at Club Industry or at URSA. So you should, know who your audience is definitely, and just get the feel for what the energy and the culture is like at that conference, and then apply. I mean, it definitely helps to know somebody. I didn't know anybody at TSI, but certainly it helps. But if you don't, you just have to keep applying, keep knocking on doors, they'll open.
Okay, so you're doing this while you're working at eDiets. You were responsible for organizing, fitness, the diet side for those guys online. Were you learning any of the technical things, or were you just totally focused on the exercise fitness? health side of things?
I learned a lot technically. I learned about
Okay.
viral marketing. I created all of the animations, so I got to work with the animation guy in terms of, just the whole kinesiology and the movement of things. So, taking a squat, mechanically and making the
Right.
figure do what you want it to do, where there's sometimes are limitations to what, a posing mechanical machine can do. So that was definitely interesting. And I didn't have to write any code or anything, but I got to do online chats, which I had never
Mhm.
done. And that was really fun. And eventually webinars. And we got to do live events. So it was more speaking experience. Once or twice a year, we would do that. And I got to do a ton of media work because people would call eDiets as a source, whether it was Prevention Magazine or Rodale or Women's
Mhm.
Day, whoever it might be. That was just incredible exposure to be able to do that.
So this one area of your life, these 3 years, has actually set you up huge for what's coming in the future, as what we're doing now with the online stuff.
Right. Yeah, I
Um,
definitely, looking back, I guess I was ahead of the curve a little bit, not
yeah.
really knowing it, but it was a whole new world for me.
Okay, now this sounds like a really awesome experience. You're learning so many different things. You're reaching and changing a lot of lives. Again, another tough time. How did you decide, all right, it's time to leave here and try something else?
Well, eDiets looked at the two programs, and I had created the program, and it was really sort of running on its own. And they had experts in all different areas from eating disorders to psychology to nutritionists. And because we were looking for a male fitness expert, we brought on another guy to sort of appeal to the men more. And they decided that the diet side was doing way better than the fitness side. So they were going to put it on sort of what they called life support.
Hmm.
And I said, well, that's great, but I don't really do life support. I like to grow things. I like to be progressive. I like to be learning. So if you're going to do life support, then, I'd like to pass the torch to the guy who's
Hmm.
still there today. Fabulous guy, Rafael Calzadilla, natural bodybuilder, awesome guy. We're still friends. So, good relationship, but it was time.
Okay. And then once you left there, what was next?
Um, I wasn't expecting that to end as abruptly as it did. And during that time, I had actually built my own house and custom house of my dreams. And we moved in and we went to a neighborhood party on Halloween. And one of the neighbors said, "We hear you're a trainer." And I said,
Mm.
I haven't really done that in like 3 years. I don't really do that anymore. She's like, "Please, you got to train me. I'm going to Vegas with my sister and she looks great and I've got to look good." So I said, "All right, fine." So I trained her for 3 months, and then the Christmas party rolled around in the neighborhood, and all the neighbors saw her and said,
Uh-oh.
"We want what she has." So
Yeah.
before you know it, in my house, I have 40 client hours a week. I haven't spent a dime on marketing. I'm charging $100 an hour at that point,
Wow. Okay.
and it was just an unlimited amount of clients. So I jumped back into the training a little bit. And then in between, I was running back upstairs to my office and I was writing articles and preparing seminars. And I also had connected with Phil Kaplan while I was
Mhm.
at eDiets, and we're, best friends, awesome guy. I've learned so much from him. And he really brought me into his fold a little bit to do coaching with him with his Be Better program.
Mm. Were you in New Jersey when you started this, or was this when you moved
I
down to
was, yeah, I
Texas?
was in New
Okay.
Jersey. I had built our house and we were in there for a total of 4 years before we moved. But I was doing the in-home training in my house for
Hmm.
about 3.5 years.
And you never spent a dime on marketing that whole time?
Not a dime. I never placed an ad. I didn't make a business card. It was
Okay.
just all word of mouth. And even some former clients from the health club heard that I was training and they started calling me. So,
Hmm.
yeah, and it was neighbors and word of mouth.
Was this all women that you were training?
No, I had guys, but I'd say it was probably 70% women.
Okay. What were you doing for them? I mean, they were just coming to you flocks, so much. What were you doing to have them coming to you like that?
Um, just getting them results, just caring about them, being there for them, educating them, everything from eating to the psychology to the movement, just working with them. It was all done one on one. There were no, well, I did have a couple sisters that were groups, but pretty much
Hmm.
one on one and just giving them a lot of attention.
Okay, so you said you're doing 40 client hours a week, trying to find time to prepare for seminars, writing, doing things with Phil Kaplan. How are you managing that time?
Well, thankfully, the house of my dreams that I built was next door to my parents, so they were able to help out with my kids.
Yeah.
But at
Okay.
that point, I had a live-in au pair.
Okay.
It was a cultural exchange program that we were
Mhm.
working with. So from the time my kids were like 1 and 2, I have full-time live-in help, and I still do. So that definitely helped out. But I did hire somebody before long. I hired somebody, so I would give her, a bulk of the clients and just keep a couple that, really were
Mhm.
good relationships.
Okay. For someone who is in a similar situation where they may be doing a lot of in-home personal training, they're real busy, what point should somebody just think about actually hiring somebody to help them?
Well, you need to set your ideal schedule first. So whatever that means for you. For example, if you say I want to train between 8 and 3, you've got to keep to that schedule, and you'll be surprised at how your clients are somehow able to accommodate that time. But you've got to set limits. Otherwise, you'll become a slave. You'll be
Hmm.
doing clients at 9 o'clock at night and on Sunday mornings. And so you really have to set your limits on the training hours. And once your training hours are full, then it makes sense to hire somebody. But don't wait to that point. Have a mentor, get an intern, start to be bringing somebody up in the ranks so that when the time comes, it's an easy transition. And you just make it as smooth as you possibly can. Of course, your clients are always going to prefer you, but you need to find somebody who's going to stomp in a really close second.
That was my next question. How did you find somebody that your clients were happy with?
She was a trainer at the gym when I owned the gym, and she had left there and gone out on her own doing in-home training, and we got reconnected. And I invited her in, and for about a month, she would just come with me during my sessions, and then we would start to transition where I'd say, okay, Michelle is going to do your cool down today. Michelle's going to do your stretch today. Michelle's going to take over the core segment. And so they got to know her, and then I was traveling, and the transition honestly was that, you know what, my travel schedule has really picked up. I don't want your training to be interrupted. Michelle's going to be here for you on Wednesday and Friday next week. So it was really a combined and honest answer, was
Hmm.
that I don't want you to miss your sessions. I'm really busy. Michelle's here. She's great. And then eventually I could have Michelle with her all the time.
Do you think you lose any clients because of that?
I didn't lose any clients because of it. In
I
fact,
see.
when I wound up moving, I gave Michelle all of my clients, and the majority of them are still with her. And that's almost 5 years now.
Well, let's talk about that. Why did you decide to move and leave things that were going really well there for you?
Things were going great. They were outstanding. My husband and I, we have a place in Marco Island, and we usually go every year on my birthday, which is in December. And it was the last day of an awesome vacation, and we were watching the sunset out on Orlanai into the Gulf of Mexico, over the top of the palm trees. And I just said, why are we going back to a winter in New Jersey? Like, we have a
Yeah,
choice. Just
yeah,
because we're
smart
born
choice.
in the Northeast doesn't mean we need to die there.
Right.
So he goes, you know what? I'll let my company know. We'll see what happens. And if something feels right, then we'll put in for a transfer and we'll see what happens. So a few things came up during the year. There was, Florida and California, and nothing really felt right. And he didn't want to move unless it was going to be a really good promotion. So
Hmm.
early in January, then, just about a year later, his company called and said, we have an opening in Texas. So literally by that weekend, we decided, let's do it. It matches our lifestyle. We're up for change. And I was pretty burnt out on the training at that point
Hmm.
and really didn't want to train anymore. So we decided, let's do it.
Okay, and at that point, you had already had your trainer basically handling everything, so it
Yeah.
was an easier, I guess, transition for you to just kind of leave that business.
Right.
Okay, so you moved down there. What were you going to do? Like, did you have any idea what you were going to do once you got there?
Well, initially, I said, I'm not going to do any training. I didn't take a mat, a band, a dumbbell, nothing. I said, I'm going to join the best fitness club in town. Nobody's going to know me. I'm going to be a client. I might even get a trainer. This is going to be great. I was so excited. And then, so we moved in July. October, I was speaking in club industry, and my friend Dr. John Spencer Ellis was speaking right after me, and we went to lunch. And I said, tell me about this boot camp thing. So he tells me about it, and he goes, I have one more training at the end of November, this year, if you want to come. So I was like, well, maybe if I get good airfare, I'll go, or, if I can get a
Hmm.
good convertible rental car, maybe I'll
Right.
go to California. And so winds up, I went, and then I came back in December, and I opened up my camp in January, and that was 4.5 years ago.
How did you end up becoming friends with him before all of this?
Phil Kaplan was working on a project called The Power of Champions, and he
Okay.
put me in charge of finding two top trainers in every one of the 50 states. And he wanted each trainer to contribute an article to the book called The Power of Champions. And so I was looking for top fitness people, and John Spencer Ellis came up pretty quickly. And I called him, and he answered the phone. And we were instant friends. I mean, we still are like brother and sister. We instantly connected. We have so much in common. It's scary.
Hmm.
People mistake us for brother and sister. We have a lot of fun together.
Okay, so you sat down, you went to lunch with him, and he's telling you about it. You're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to go out to this event. You do. What was it that said, all right, I'm going to go, and do this boot camp thing and try it, even though I'm tired of training and doing all of that stuff?
Well, at that point, I had had a few months rest and we were settled
Okay.
into the new house. And I had talked to my friend Valerie in New Jersey, who was doing the adventure boot camp in the town where I used to live, and she was just knocking it out of the water. So I was like, well, if I could train 1 hour a week and
Hmm.
earn that much money, it is
Hmm.
totally worth me waking up and going. And then people said to me, Kelly, why would you go get boot camp training? At this point, you've been a trainer for over 20 years. You have
Right.
25 certifications. What could you possibly learn? And I said, you know what? If 3 days of training saves me, 3 years of mistakes and saves me a lot of money in mistakes, it's totally worth it. And I learned a ton in those 3 days. It was unbelievable what I would not have even thought about in terms of running a boot camp.
Were you right off the bat, as soon as you went and finished that, you're like, I'm doing this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I knew when I bought that plane ticket that I was absolutely going to do it. I mean, I don't make a commitment and not
Right.
follow through. So I knew I would start my camp up in January. So I spent December just getting everything ramped up, getting the website going, getting the,
Hmm.
the vehicle wrap and everything ready.
What did you do since you were in an area where no one knew who you were, really? What did you do to bring in your first clients?
I ran a couple ads in the paper
Okay.
and I went up to the school where I was going to host the class and I did a seminar at the school. So I instantly got 13 people that day, which was good.
Wow.
And I started my first camp with 17 and I ended it with 37 because these ladies came in and then they started telling their friends. So I started day one with 17 and I ended 4 weeks later with 35. So that was pretty incredible. And that was in January. By the summer, I had 68. So it just kept growing, and it's been a great experience.
Was that all word of mouth again?
I initially I was probably spending about 1,900 a month for the first maybe 3 months in marketing, and then I cut it down to about 1,000. And
Okay.
then, now I spend, I don't even know how much, maybe 500 a month for ads.
Okay.
Not even. I think I spend 250 for ads, and then the other is in online marketing.
Okay. So early on, it was most of the money went to just ads, maybe in the local newspaper.
Right. Yeah, ads in the local newspaper. And I got a lot of press too. I mean, the newspaper
Okay.
came out and did a story on me, so I was on the front page, so that really helped.
How'd you get that press?
It was kind of interesting. These reporters had contacted me because they saw me in Redline magazine. They had done a feature on me called Women, I don't know, something about successful women or something. And they noticed that I lived in Flower Mound and they were reporters in Flower Mound. So they wanted to know about that story. So they came out. I'm like, hey guys, that was really cool. I go, but you got to hear what I'm doing now with this boot camp. So they took pictures of me and my
Hmm.
equipment had just come in. So it was me and all the equipment. And the vehicle had just been wrapped, so they got the picture and on the front page. So it was great.
Okay. And you did this a while back before boot camps, were really popular. I know John and I had talked about it. He kind of brought it into the mainstream, and you were doing it when it was early. Was there anybody else around your area that was doing anything similar, like group training?
There was nothing at the time at
Okay.
all whatsoever. Now there's lots of competition. There are
Right.
so many people who have copied his model. I mean, he spent 10 years waking up at 4:30 in the morning and out there leading classes in the rain and whatever it might be. He came up with a system. He tried it all. He knew what worked, he knew what didn't, days on, days off, time of
Hmm.
day, how much to charge, and he perfected it. I mean, our coaches do phenomenally well. And since then, of course, there's been a lot of knockoffs, but they come and
Right.
go. And in fact, we just had a conversation about this on an adventure boot camp weekly call about how these companies, other camps come in, but then they're gone. They're just not a threat.
Was it the systems when you were doing this that probably really helped accelerate the growth for you?
Absolutely. Oh, completely. Just knowing everything about the leadership of how to run a camp, to how to do it professionally, to what's the business side, to knowing your
Right.
numbers, to website optimization. I mean, it is completely turnkey. We do it all for you. You just have to plug and play.
When you were doing this again early on, was it just you, or did you have a partner helping you out with this?
It was just me. I was doing the women's camp for about 2 years before I brought an assistant on, and she
Okay.
is not a coach so much as just somebody who helps me set up the equipment, greet new members, take attendance, clean up equipment, partner up with new people. So she does not lead in any way, but she's been fantastic. And then 2 years into it, one of the ladies, one day out of the month I do bring a friend day, and it's
Hmm.
co-ed that day. Otherwise, it's all women, and she would bring her husband every month. And one day he walked up to me and he goes, "You know what? It's not fair. One day a month is a tease. We need
Hmm.
some more boot camp." So his wife points across the parking lot and says, "Well, how about if the men go over there?" And that was sort of the moment where the light bulb went off. I'm like, you know what? We could do that. So I
Hmm.
found an awesome male instructor, and then we had the men's camp going. Instantly, we had 12 guys just from the husbands of the women. So that was great.
And that's interesting because generally, this type of stuff, it's more women oriented, and women tend to do this type of thing. So you were able to get the guys in there. Were
Yeah.
you able to grow and build that side of things as quickly as you would with the women?
Definitely not. I probably
Okay.
have the largest men's camp in the country, but it's not very large. It still is about 15. We've had up to 20. If I really do like a great contest, I did a contest a couple months ago where I gave away $1,000 in cash plus a huge duffel bag filled with gift cards and prizes. And so that'll, bring more people in. But it's a little tougher with the guys. They tend to travel more, so they miss more of the workouts. So that's, I'm not sure why it's not bigger, but
Hmm.
the guys who come, some of them have been there now for 3 years. They've been there since day one and they love it. It's addicting.
What's the difference between the training side for the women's and then for the guys?
It's a little different. There, occasionally, one of us will be out and the other will take over a combined camp. So if Jeremiah's out, I get the men for the day with the women. And they always say that it's very tough, that they feel things they've never felt, but it's just different than Jeremiah's style. And Jeremiah's background is strength and conditioning coach, and
Hmm.
he was a 4-year football player, and just athletic training and Olympic weightlifting. So his style's a little different than mine, but
Hmm.
they love them both, and they're both hard in a different way.
Do you run it at the same times, like the same
Yes.
type of schedules, or so many weeks on, this week off, same thing?
Yeah, exact schedule. We kick it off on Sunday night with the nutrition seminar. Everybody starts Monday morning, and it's 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
Okay. And you said you've had a couple guys now for 3 years.
Mhm.
Are you doing anything for the guys side of thing to market it differently, or has that still been word of mouth?
Um, it's a combination. I mean, anytime I do marketing now, I always will make sure "and men" is in there. I'll say women
Okay.
and men's camps. Partly, I think that might have hurt things a little bit because the
Hmm.
women only is appealing to a lot of women, but our camps are exclusive of each other. And if there's, an occasional day here or there where we have a co-ed camp, the women don't mind and the men don't mind. But you need to really be specific in your marketing. So if you're going after a woman, you're using a completely different headline, completely different images. And so sometimes if I need or want to get more women in the women's camp, I will totally focus the images and the headlines and the testimonials towards women. And then, "and men" will be at the bottom. So usually I'm not going to pull a lot from something like that versus if I do something that's a little more unisex. There have been times where I've done things that are much more geared towards the men, but I haven't found that it really pulls tremendously. Something like the contest, men only win $1,000. So if you have any recommendations for me as a guy, I'm always polling the guys, going, "What do you think? How do I get the guys in?"
Right.
I'm trying to think
Right.
like a guy. It's not
Right.
working that well.
No, but it's good. You're doing, you're asking them, you're surveying them, so that's the right idea. Now, how do you market now? Because you have the two segments, you have the men and the women. You do things a little bit differently, but how is the marketing now different from what you were doing, maybe just 3 or 4 years ago?
I do a lot less paid for marketing. I mean, I write for the newspaper every month in the monthly paper,
Hmm.
so that allows me to steer things. In fact, just before this interview, I wrote my article for this month, and it was about using your tax refund towards your fitness. And I give all this details about how people normally spend their tax dollars and how that compares to what they could get for fitness benefits. And so that article, people read that column now. They've been reading that column for 4 years. So that gets people. I use my real people in ads. Well, here's Jackie. She went from a size 8 to a size 4 in 4 weeks. Here's Julie. She dropped those last 10 pounds. So people look at that. And when they come in for the nutrition seminar the first night, and I'll say, what made you come now? You've known this program's been here for years. And they'll say, oh, I've been, reading your articles and I've been watching those women. And I just said, if that woman Carla can do it, I can do it too. Or maybe they knew somebody who was in an ad. So I find that using my real people works, and then getting in the community at least twice a month. I'm speaking for either the chamber or a group of realtors or in a community center. So it's just the exposure. My
Hmm.
vehicle is all over the place. So people will call me and say, I'm following you. I need to sign up. I mean, I feel like I have a stalker sometimes.
Right.
Um, but so not a lot of dollars anymore, just exposure.
Okay, so you're getting out there, putting your face out, you're, brand, you've been there a while, so that obviously helps. You
Mhm.
also have, the technical side of things from working with e-diets. How has that helped you, and what are you doing with the online side of things?
Well, I definitely got better at writing with e-diets because I would write twice a week for their newsletter. So now I'm able to write very fast. I'm able to write things that are tight and bright. I can write headlines that I know for the most part will get people's attention. So the writing part definitely helped, which also, helps with the marketing. And the technology side too. I mean, I have somebody that helps me now with my social media because that's just, a moving target and I don't
Hmm.
have the time or the interest or the energy to really learn it. But what I'll do is every night I'll think about what went on during my day and what's coming up tomorrow and the next day. And I'll just send some points to my social media guys and I'll say, hey, let's talk about this seminar, link to this article that I wrote. I was featured or interviewed here, so link to that, and then they just work their magic. So I'm just using my resources as much as possible.
What do you have going on outside of running the boot camp? Because I know there's always a lot of things you're busy with. So what else are you doing?
There's a lot. Well, next month, Dr. John Spencer Ellis and I are hosting Fitness Fortunes Live, which is going to be
Hmm.
an incredible event. We are so excited about it. We've put on events the last 2 years, but this year by far is going to blow it away. And what we did with this event is we sat down in December and we said, what do the trainers really need? So he has a coaching program called Fitness Fortunes. So we came up with, okay, they need exercise fortunes. They need to know how to make nutrition fortunes, social
Hmm.
media fortunes, what I call life ownership fortunes, which is about what most people call time management.
Right.
We want to talk to them about speaking fortunes. How do you make a fortune speaking as a fitness professional, and so on. There's I think 8 different sessions, and so working on that event is taking up some time.
Hmm.
I'm also doing a complete fitness program for a company called CPA Network. It is the largest network of CPAs. And CPAs, like personal trainers,
That's
hear just
smart.
about everything about their clients' lives. So we wanted to create a place for CPAs to send their clients. So there's 3 different portals. There's a finance, there's a
Hmm.
family, and there's a health portal. So I'm in charge of the health portal, which includes sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management. So that should be going live, should be any time now, sometime in May.
What's your role outside of owning your own adventure boot camp? What's your role in helping that program grow?
Well, I am, I guess, what they call the champion of the health portal. So I created all the content, and we have
Hmm.
3 different levels for each one of the modules. So, for example, exercise, there's a silver, bronze, and a gold. And people will fill out a profile and go into that. And then, based on where they fall, then they go through that program. So I created it. I will be responsible once it's live for doing teleseminars. I can feature products, supporting
Hmm.
the people on it, hiring people as we need, as we grow.
You're also, I believe, is the master trainer for Adventure
Yes.
Bootcamp. Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
I want to, before I get into that, I kind of want to know, you met John, you called him up, you kind of became friends that way. How did you end up as partners, Adventure
Um,
Bootcamp, doing all this stuff?
Well, John was doing the Adventure Bootcamp program. He was doing the live trainings and he was doing them with another woman. And then that relationship kind of went in a separate direction. So he asked me, he said, Kelly, you're doing such a phenomenal job with the boot camps. You're charging more than anyone else in the country. You're in a town with 3,200 people and you have
Hmm.
68 women out there exercising. I'd like you to come in. Let's totally redo the program and let's make it even better. So I did that. I wrote a drill book and I just really organized things. And I went out to California for about 3 days and we filmed everything and created a home study program. And I just do a lot more support than was there before. And the company's
Hmm.
growing. I mean, we have 400 camps in 9 countries. So it just needed more congruency and support. So I do that.
How has that helped you personally and in business, being part of, that organization and being able to help others?
It's helped tremendously. Part of the legacy that I want to leave is to help personal trainers to help more people and to live a respectable professional lifestyle where they can earn a living that's equal to an attorney or a doctor or any other respected professional. And the Adventure Bootcamp program, hands down, is by far the fastest and the best way that I have found for personal trainers to earn more money. I mean, the average trainer is earning between 20 and 30,000. And in my first year of Adventure Boot Camp, doing one camp, it was $161,000. And I'm not bragging or ashamed to share that number, but that's the honest truth. That is the potential that the camps have. And I'm just doing one class in a small town. I have friends who I've personally turned on to it who are in college towns or bigger cities, and they've
Hmm.
got 100 people and 150 people. I mean, they split it up over a couple hours, but they have done other things and done other things well. They've owned studios and franchises, and they said, Kelly, by far, hands down, this is the best investment. It's the most fun thing I've ever done, and I enjoy it, and I can reach more people. Just makes sense.
Are you doing anything personally online, selling products or doing anything like that?
I have the Adventure Bootcamp cookbook, which I created with
Okay.
a chef, and I also have contributing recipes from other Adventure Bootcamp coaches. I have a 30-day detox fat burning meal plan. I just did an audio CD that's 2 hours, and that's for the consumer or the trainer. Trainers buy more of my products than consumers. It's funny.
Hmm.
About grocery shopping and dining out and eating for a lean body. So yeah, I don't create a lot of products, but right now I'm working on redoing that drill book. I have a photo shoot next week for that. So new pictures, new exercises, new drills. That'll be out probably in June. So
Okay.
yeah, always working on that.
Okay. And I also know that you're the editor of PFP, Personal Fitness Professional Magazine. How'd you end up in that role?
I'm actually not the editor anymore.
Ah, okay.
I wrote for one of PFP's original magazine issues. Mike Campitelli was a friend of mine who we had hired as
Hmm.
a consultant at our club. And he told me about this guy, Conrad Swanson, who was starting a magazine, and they were looking to interview industry experts. And was I interested? So I wrote for that first magazine. Then they called me back for a few more. Then I wound up having a regular column. And then Conrad sort of moved on to the next phase of his life,
Hmm.
and they were looking for an editor, and my name came up. Actually, Phil Kaplan is their business editor,
Okay.
and he threw my name in the hat, and I interviewed, and I was the editor there for 3 years.
Okay. And then one of the other programs, speaking of writing and authoring, you did the what was it, the Feminine Firm and Fit program that you
Yes.
designed that, right? It was like a 12-week makeover for women.
Mhm.
Um, Kind of explain, where your ideas were, like how you decided to do something like that.
Okay. Well, in 2001, I built my own house, the house that I was telling you about that I put the gym in for my husband and I. And I
Yeah.
remember staying up for like 2 days straight and unpacking every box. And I got the last box unpacked. And for the first time, I sat down in my brand new office. And I remember just going, like it was a year in the making. My goal was to be in this house in a year. And it was like a year and a week that we were in because the inspector was delayed, but I'm not going to get caught up on that.
Yeah.
And I got in the house and I sat down and I felt like, okay, mission accomplished. You got that project done. What's next? And I went, I know, I'm going to write a book. So that I remembered right where I was sitting, looking out my new office window and going, I'm going to write a book. At that moment, I made the decision. that time I had two little kids and
Mm-hmm.
thankfully got my body back right away. And I thought, you know what, there's a lot of moms out there who they just don't get their bodies back and their metabolism changes and they need to know what's different about their bodies and why they're more resistant to weight loss and just the combination of the lack of sleep with having kids, the amount of stress that women have with running a home and being professionals. And I just felt like they were not fully aware of all the things that they could do to get back in great shape. And it's important to them. So I decided to create Feminine, Firm, and Fit, and it's a 12-week program. It has an audio CD that's an introduction to the program and talks exactly about that, why women's bodies
Mm-hmm.
are different. It talks about their metabolism. Then there's a program guide that gives you your paint by number, step by step, follow this for 12 weeks and you cannot fail. Then there is another CD that is a coaching CD that for 12 weeks you plug it in and you just listen to that segment for each week and it gives you motivational tips and coaching tips. And then there's also an exercise guide and a journal for you to track everything. So it has 5 pieces to it and it's been selling for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's been doing pretty well. And the one thing I'm real curious about is it was somehow you got it recommended by Brian Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
I was actually flying from New Jersey to San Diego every 90 days to meet with Brian Tracy for a coaching session.
Okay.
I just wanted to learn more about business, about life management, and just decided to go with Brian. And I got to meet him and
Mm-hmm.
be with him and eat lunch with him. And every 90 days for over a year, I flew out there. And he had heard that I had a book, and I sent a copy to him, and he endorsed it.
The other thing that, and I wanted to have you come on here is that you're really successful and you're a female in the industry who's just kicking some major butt. I want you to share like maybe some tips and advice for some of the other women out there who maybe are in this situation or struggling a little bit. Like what can they do to persevere and try and step their game up a little bit?
Yeah, we're definitely in the minority. I think that's changing a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
remember being on panels at New York Sports Club or for power systems where it's literally like 9 guys and me. It's doctor this one, and all the big guys, and Juan Carlos and Ryan Lee, and
Mm-hmm.
all these guys are up there, and then there's me. And that doesn't intimidate me. It just motivates me and inspires me even more. And I think it's important. We need a woman's perspective. A lot of the personal training clients are women, and I don't think I could think like a guy thinks as much as I try and understand it and learn it. And it's important in this industry that we have a female perspective on things because women's bodies, are different and their needs are different, their stress is different. So I would encourage all women, do not be intimidated. If you are a competent trainer that has done her background and you've gotten a degree or certifications and you've gotten experience, then you just need to, pull your head up, pull your shoulders back, and just put yourself out there. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do even outside the industry where I'm the only woman. I motorcycle, I mountain bike, I ride road bikes, and it'll be me and 15 guys, me and 9 guys. I'm not afraid of it. Thankfully, my husband's very secure and he's good with it. So I wouldn't let it stop you. Just know that it's important that we have women out there.
All right, cool. Now I just want to wrap up with a few other questions. I know you've been doing this for a long time. You've been very successful business. You've had a great life so far, but I'm sure there's been a few bumps along the way.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the biggest failures that you've had?
And I'm not going to say they still don't happen. What happens is because I love what I do and because I'm so excited and so passionate, I get a lot of opportunities. And it's easy for me to get derailed because somebody will go, hey, you're such an expert. We'd love to have you come in here and help out with this kids fitness program. And of course, I love kids and I want them to be fit and I'm, working against obesity. So then I'll just get taken in this direction, which takes me off track of what I'm doing. But that will happen literally 5 times a day. So it's sort of this, the bright, shiny object starts popping out over here and grabs my attention away. And there have been years where the year ends and I look at my income statement and I look at the amount of work that I did and I just want to cry. And I think about, wow, I poured so much into that program and the investors just decided to shelf it. And, wow, I spent so much time doing this, but they decided, that wasn't a viable idea. So when you're an expert, when you're good at what you do, people are going to want you. So you have to really, when you get an offer, I'm pretty quick to delete right now, but there are some good ones out there. And, sort of sleep on it would be some advice that I would say. Don't jump on it. I just got a call right now for a tea company, all organic, natural tea. It looks great. That's something that I'd be very comfortable aligning with. But it means 2 days in New York. And so you just kind of need to weigh things out. Like even the CPA thing, they found me, and it's been a couple of months in the working now, and I know eventually the fruit will be there. But I would just say, if things feel good, peaceful, light, then that's good. But if this thing is giving you stress and darkness and confusion, then as quickly as you can, just move away. I've stayed with things too long. So I would definitely say that that's the downside.
That raises a good point. A lot of people, as they become more and more successful in their careers in the fitness industry, a lot more people start approaching them for things. It's hard to say no sometimes. How do you say no without, offending somebody, knowing that down the road you may end up working with them anyway?
Right. And you always want to leave the door open and leave a good relationship. I just had a call yesterday from a woman who said, hey, my brother knows you and he's a client of yours, and I'm in the makeup industry, and, I think we could really connect. I know you've got a lot of women who follow you. And I go, you know what? I would love to meet you. I would love to connect. I can't do anything until next month. Why don't you put in your calendar to give me a call next month, and we'll revisit it. But I honestly, I can't take on one more thing right now. So you just have to set your own limits and become protective of your time. I think I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, because at the end of the day, I want to enjoy it. I want to feel like I've been productive and I've accomplished something, but I've also had my workout. I've also had enough sleep. I've also spent time with my kids and my husband. I've done some reading. So those things are important to me, because there's been many a day that I finished the day and I went, oh, I didn't even shower today. I didn't work out today. I didn't. And I go, for what? For some stranger in Pennsylvania who called me, asking for help about her overweight teenage daughter. And I want to help her, but not at the expense of completely missing my workout or not spending time with my husband. So you, even the most successful people in the world, they can't do it all. So you need to figure out systems where you can help more people without it taking up your energy and your time.
What's the biggest piece of advice you've ever received?
That's a good question. Biggest piece of advice I've ever received. I would say that our joy is totally guaranteed, but our circumstances are not. So meaning, things in life are going to happen to you. It makes sense for you to be in the best shape you can physically, financially, professionally, personally, because when that car accident or that illness or that lawsuit or, that flood, whatever happens unexpectedly, it makes sense to be in the best possible shape. You don't have to be happy about it, but it still shouldn't change your joy on the inside. And that actually it was a message from my pastor. Your joy is guaranteed, but your circumstances are not.
Very cool. Kelli, you gave so much great information. Where can people find out more about you if they're interested?
Really simple. Kelli, Kelli, Calabrese, Calabrese.com.
Very cool. Kelli, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate what you're doing for the industry and for your time.
Thank you.